Hello everyone, Meisterang here, and yeah, I'm doing a white card tier list now. This is going to be much trickier than a black card tier list, because the effects vary much more wildly with the white cards, and there are a lot more synergies. I'm going to not take into account synergies too much, but I'm not going to ignore them entirely. Okay, so S tier is cards that you want to take because they're either beneficial to you or they're kind of harmless. And D tier is going to be the deadliest white cards, just for understanding of what this tier list means. Okay, ammunition depot. You get a rook, but anytime you kill a rook, you gain 2 ammo. So probably it's going to go in B tier, and the reason is because adding a rook is pretty dangerous. I would say most of the time it's not too bad. If you have one extra rook to deal with, like you can kind of just kind of ignore it. Like if there are 2 rooks, then maybe one of them will get to you and you'll be able to shoot it down, and hopefully the other rook will be stuck or you'll be able to kite it. I don't know. It's like one rook is dangerous, but it's not going to mess you up too badly unless your run was kind of marginal anyway. Um, and the upside of getting 2 ammo when you kill a rook, it's kind of like it's hard to take advantage of that because usually you want to shoot the other pieces first. Like if you run out of ammo shooting the knights and bishops and pawns and queen, like the ammunition depot benefit, it's not great. Um, so I would say this is B. This is a dangerous card, but it's not like a single-handedly gonna end your run. Okay, analysis paralysis. So you lose 6 turns, or you just lose turns until you get put in check, whichever comes first. Okay, well, losing 6 turns is a big deal. In 6 turns, you could move up 2 squares, shoot, reload, and regenerate an ammo. So I guess when you consider the fact that you're usually spending your first 2 moves, your first 2 turns just moving up, I kind of think this is a little less bad than I originally thought it would be. Um, so maybe you're losing. Okay, you spend 2 turns moving. Then let's say you're playing with the Solomon, and you have 2 shells in your clip. Then you shoot 2 times, you reload, and you regenerate an ammo. That's what you can do in 6 turns. So you kind of get 2 shots off and regenerate most of and you're mostly ready to keep shooting. Okay. Or if you're playing with a Victoria, move? Maybe you only have to move once because you have that increased range, and you shoot, reload, regenerate, shoot, reload. So either way, you're probably kind of losing 2 shots, almost 2 shots worth of value by losing 6 turns. Um, or you don't lose as many turns, but you get a bishop staring at you. So yeah, what do I think of that? I think that it, hmm, okay, you don't want to get surrounded. I think this is, I think this, it's either B tier or C tier. It can be very deadly. Like it's gonna put you on the back foot at the start of the round, and you really like it's gonna make it harder to stop pawns from promoting. It's gonna make it just harder to get a shot on one piece because multiple pieces are attacking you because they've had time to develop. I'm gonna put this in C tier. Okay, ascension. Bishops can move and attack over obstacles. I would say this is not a big problem most of the time. Usually what you want to do is bait the bishops toward you. Um, so you're like shooting them kind of early, and actually ascension can sometimes help you with that. Where yeah, you want like a bishop moving on turn 1, you just like move 1 space toward its destination, and then you can shoot it on turn 2. And like without red book, it's like you can still outmaneuver them pretty easily. And even with red book, they'll just move to be very close to you if they can. If you can get to like 1 column over from them, then they'll just red book move right up to you, and then you can shoot them if you have enough damage. If you don't have enough firepower to one-shot a bishop, then I could see this being a problem. But you can also just go on the opposite color square. I think this is A tier. I don't think this is a big threat. Also, bishops can move over pieces, but they cannot stop on the same square as a piece. So you can still kind of like stop them. You can still manipulate them to stop them from attacking you if you can get pieces to get in each other's way. Okay, assault. I believe it adds a pawn, but the more important effect is that it lets pawns move 2 squares on the first turn, on the first move, which costs you 5 turns in terms of how long it takes them to promote. Because they get an extra move, and the move costs them 5 turns. I mean, if you have enough damage, you can take out all the pawns before they promote anyway. In which case, it's just kind of a nothing card. It's just like add 1 pawn. Who cares? But it can be difficult to like. You're also fighting bishops and knights, and also the queen. I would say this is B tier. It kind of depends on the loadout you have, if you can efficiently eliminate pawns. Okay, so backups, I would say this is S tier because like 3 pawns they're kind of irrelevant. It takes you, let's say, 3 extra shots to kill them, but they don't add any threat. They don't add a significant amount of threat while you're like in the level, and or like just before they don't really add a lot of threat before they promote. It's just like, eventually they're going to promote and it's going to be very bad. Um, so I would say like it's maybe like it's either S tier or A tier. I think I'm going to keep it in S tier. Okay, bodyguard. Yeah. Knights get +1 health, and the king can't die while there are knights. Well, knights are so aggressive that you're going to be shooting every single knight before you go after the king. So that isn't super relevant most of the time. So it's just how much does 1 health on knights matter? Well, if you barely have enough damage to one-shot a knight and then you take this card, you're going to be sad. Um, but the thing is, usually you're point blanking a knight. You would like a knight would move up to you. You would move closer to it to get a better shot, and then you would point blank it. And in that case, the knight is not attacking you. So not being able to one-shot it is not as bad as if you're in a situation where you're like staring down a rook, queen, or bishop. So I would say the +1 health on knights isn't that big a deal. Okay, bunker. Let me see if I remember what this card does. I think it removes a rook. It reduces your grenade damage. I think it gives kings and pawns +1 health. Something like that. Removing a rook is pretty powerful. Um, and yeah, if you have grenades, it's kind of a shame that your grenades do 1 damage instead of 2. But grenades are kind of filler anyway, so I don't think that's that important. Like if you have philanthropy, you probably shouldn't take bunker, but otherwise, you're removing a rook with very little downside. I'm going to say this goes in A tier. All right. Well, now we can get cardinal. Um, yeah, so it just promotes a pawn into a bishop at the start of the round, effectively, and you also lose 1 max ammo. If your max ammo is like kind of low, you probably shouldn't take this. Well, I mean, even with the Victoria, at rank 15, you have one higher ammo than it says because you get -1 ammo max at rank 14, I think, and then +2 at rank 15. So I think this is definitely one of the more benign cards you can get. Does it go in S tier? I think it does. Yeah, like as long as you have enough ammo to be fine with this, then, it's one of the least impactful cards in the game. Okay. What about castle? Give rooks +1 health. Okay. But it also, yeah, when you shoot a king, it'll swap with a rook, and the rook will take the damage instead. I think that text is a benefit to you because, okay, let's say you have one rook. If you have one rook, then you can disable both the king and the rook in one shot. Like if you just like go close to the king and you shoot the king, then even if the rook was already looking at you, you're stunning both of them. So like that's a benefit, and usually you want to take out, like by the time you are ready to take out the king, you're probably, well, I don't know. I guess you can kind of dodge one or two rooks if you're just going for the king, but I still think it's generally safer to take out the rooks if you can. It's like, okay, you take out the bishops and knights, and then you take out the pawns. You take out the queen whenever you can, and then like the rooks are last, and by the time you've cleared out everything except for the rooks, you're probably okay to just take out rooks. The question is +1 health on a rook really impactful? And I think the answer is not really, because rooks already have so much health. Um, I guess technically, if you have the Solomon, I think rooks start with 8 health. If you have the Solomon, you can two-shot a rook by default. Um, and then castle makes you unable to do that, but I still think that's fine. Also, I don't think you have guaranteed shots with the Solomon on a diagonally adjacent rook. And of course, you're not going to shoot it from orthogonally adjacent if it's at full health. I'm going to put this in A tier. Okay, cathedral. Yeah, this is super deadly. So yeah, that you remove a bishop and you add a rook, and everything next to a rook, except for other rooks, can only take one damage at a time. So like you pretty much you have to take out everything before any of the rooks can get close. Otherwise, yeah, otherwise like the knight or bishop or pawn that's standing next to it, you're just not gonna be able to kill it. Even pawns have 4 health, and everything else has even more than that at rank 15. There's just a lot of health to work with. So it's a lot of shots that you'll have to take. I would say this is a card that can very easily end your run unless you have some kind of counter to it. Like, I don't know, if you have taunting hop, uh, or you have like wand of wrath and high damage. Yeah, if you have taunting hop, you can like do 1 damage for free, and it doesn't cathedral doesn't do anything to your 1 damage attacks. I guess ravenous rats is also like pretty good against that. I don't know. I'm just theory crafting here because I don't take that card. Um, except to unlock the entire codex. Anyway, I'm gonna put this in D tier. It's gonna end your run if you take it, most likely. Okay, adding 2 knights on turn 15. Hopefully on by like you know what they say, bird in the hand is worth two in the bush. Um, yeah, I'm future your future self can deal with these 2 knights. Hopefully by turn 15 you sort of made the board settle down a little bit, and even if you haven't, the 2 knights that show up are going to be on the back of the board. So it's good. You're going to have knights move every 3 turns, so you're probably going to have around 6 turns before the knights are actually a threat to you. So this card basically does nothing for 20-ish turns. Yeah, that's S tier. Um, Now, I forget what this card is called, but um, yeah, getting two bishops on turn 15 is similar to the knights, except the bishops can move farther, so they're more dangerous. But yeah, hopefully you stabilized by turn 15, and if you haven't stabilized by turn 15 and you like lose to these reinforcements, then you probably would have lost to some other card anyway. Like I think I'm more likely to like if there was a card that just said add one bishop, um, I think that would be more dangerous than adding two bishops on turn 15. Okay, so also S tier, but I think uh, cavalry is an even better card to take. Like if you see cavalry and whatever the heck this card is, conclave, then you would want to take cavalry. But most likely you would just take whichever black card is better because these cards are very similar. Okay, conscription, add a pawn every 5 turns. I think most of the time the pawn, like the first pawn that gets added is on turn 5. It does nothing for 5 turns, or I guess 4 turns. But even once that pawn shows up, it's not going to do anything for a long time because it doesn't move for another 5 turns or whatever. It moves every 5 turns. So let's say maybe by the time it's on row 5, it starts to be a threat. Well, okay, so it gets added to the board on row 8 on turn 5. Maybe on turn 7 it gets to row 7, and then by turn 17 it gets to row 5. So this kind of does nothing for at least 15 turns. And at the end of the round, if you're trying to clear everything out, you can probably take out one pawn every 5 turns. Um, if you're running the Solomon, you shoot 2 times, you reload, and you regenerate 2 ammo. That's what you can do in 5 turns. So you can do 2 shots worth of damage. That's 8 damage, which is yeah enough to kill a pawn and splash some other pieces with the shrapnel. So yeah, also S tier. Um, I think it. I don't know. I'm not going to worry too much about ordering cards within tiers. Okay, Court of the King. That adds a lot of pieces, but it also makes pieces slower. I feel like when I take this card, I end up regretting it more often than not. It's like pieces being slower doesn't really like pieces being 1 turn slower doesn't really matter because if they all move on the same turn, they'll just like they'll just put you in a mating net and then yeah, and then you have multiple pieces attacking you. Whereas without Court of the King, you'd have one piece attacking you. I'm gonna put this in C tier. Like if you have Sacred Crown or Courteous Jousting, I think if you have Sacred Crown or Courteous Jousting, then Court of the King is actually fine because you either get 4 extra turns from soul cards or you get 2 extra turns from shooting knights. Okay, uh, and then Crusades. I think what is yeah, that's add 2 knights and remove a bishop. I think this is fairly benign. You're just adding one piece to the board. Like, would you want to add one bishop or add one knight? That's like one of the tamest cards you can get. Um, so I think, hmm. Well, if you compare this to other cards, okay, what other cards just like straight up add a knight? Um, there are several cards that add bishops, but not many cards that add knights apparently. It's just like add a knight. Yeah, entitle adds a knight, but okay. It's also a weird one because it removes a pawn and it takes away an ammo. Is there anything that just adds a knight? It looks like there isn't. The moat. or whatever. The bridge adds a knight on turn 10, I believe. Okay, whatever. So there isn't really anything super comparable to this, but whatever. It's not very dangerous. I would say I would say this probably is slightly worse. I would say this is like the bottom of S tier. Okay, now divine healing. Bishop's getting +1 health and also getting the ability to heal. That can slow you down a lot if you don't have enough damage to one-shot stuff, or if your build isn't great, hmm, like this can make it so bishops you can't one-shot bishops, and then it can undo a lot of the damage that you do. I think without any sort of synergy, this can be dangerous. Like if you don't have egotic maelstrom or you don't have like some sort of speed penalty to enemy pieces, then it's pretty dangerous. One thing that's neat about the bishops, about the healing bishops, is that you can cause them to just stay in place for many turns if you're able to spare, like if you can just take one shot on the bishop and reduce it to 1 health, maybe like it has 6 health and you shoot it for 5, you reduce it to 1 health, and it's going to be healing 5 times, and then yeah, that's going to be 15 turns. That's going to be 15 turns of the bishop potentially getting in the way of rooks. I think, okay, given all that, I think it's not particularly dangerous. I would say, hmm, if you can one-shot stuff, it's really good. If you can't, then it's pretty dangerous. I'm going to put it in B tier, actually. How comparable is this to Ammunition Depot? I think I think it's better to take Divine Healing than Ammunition Depot, but not by much. Okay, what about promoting a pawn to a knight? Well, I think in general knights are less dangerous than bishops, so I'm going to also put this in S tier for the same reason that whatever this card was is also an S tier. Okay, let's take a look at full plate armor. So all pieces lose 1 speed, but they gain 1 health, and you lose 1 blade. Okay, well, if you're going with a blade build, you probably don't want to take this card because you double dip on the penalties. But if you're not, if you're just shooting stuff, then, well, that adds a lot of health to the board. Maybe you have 10 pieces on the board that adds 10 health that you have to get through. Um, but it slows down pawns. Well, it slows down everything, but like I think if you can still one-shot stuff, even with the +1 health, then it's really good because everything's slowed down by one turn per move. Pawns need to move 6 times before they promote, which gives you an extra 6 turns before pawns promote. But in exchange for those 6 turns, you get everything has 1 more health. Uh, wow, it's really hard for me to like put this in the tier list. I think I the thing is, enemy speed doesn't matter quite as much as you might think because if 2 enemy pieces are moving on the same turn, then like if you have an extra turn to prepare for that, it can still be very dangerous. Uh, but because yeah, I don't know, speed is important. Like I really don't like taking cards that give enemy pieces +1 speed. I think I'm gonna put this in B tier. It can be dangerous, but if you have enough damage, then it's really good. Which I guess enough damage is just, enough to one shot. Like, I guess a knight or bishop, even with the +1 health. So like if you have some extra damage, then full plate armor is better. Okay, what about genderqueer? You lose a bishop, but you gain a queen after 10 turns. Well, queens are a lot more dangerous than bishops, but I think comparably this card is usually not too bad. This is also going in B tier. Am I just going to put everything in B tier? That's not, it's like, I don't know, whatever. Let's, okay, so in 10 turns, you probably haven't taken out the first queen, or maybe you have. I don't know, this is kind of, I think this is kind of a medium card. I'll put it in B tier. Okay, guillotine, remove a king. Well, I usually clear out most of the stuff in the level anyway before I go after the king, because it's a little too risky to just leave a bunch of pieces alive and then maybe on their turns they checkmate you. You don't need that many pieces alive in order to get checkmated. Like maybe just like a couple of knights, a bishop, and a pawn, plus the king if you're near the king. You don't want to like overextend to go after the king. Uh, so I feel like this is A tier. Actually, I really like it. I'm gonna put it in S tier somewhere. I'm actually just gonna put it in the top of S tier because like I just clear everything out anyway. Okay, highest dungeon, all pieces plus 1 health. Flip card if there's no rook. I believe that's what it said. Well, rooks are the highest health pieces in the game, so you're not going to be taking out the rooks first. I think this is either I put it in C tier or D tier. Like this is a very dangerous card. I haven't played with it much, but I just know that like okay, let's say you have full plate armor, but without the upside. Yeah. Like I think this is you can deal with this card if you have enough damage, but if you have enough damage, you can deal with pretty much anything. I'm gonna put this in D tier. I think it's probably the least bad D tier card. Um, but it's still very likely to end your run if you take it. Okay, Iron Maiden. Like I kind of want to just put this in D tier because not being able to take out a queen is very bad. But I should at least put some thought into this. Okay, so queens normally move every 4 turns. This will make them move every 6 turns. I think you need some kind of synergy to be able to deal with this. Like if you have king's shoulders, then you can chuck her off the board and you're probably okay. Well, I mean, and you're very happy. If you have like taunting hop or unfaithful steed or some other kind of mobility, then you can deal with that. Secret crown also helps, but like you also lose the ability to reliably get queen souls. Like the only way you can get a queen soul is by tossing a queen off the board with king's shoulders. I just don't think it's worth it. I think Yeah, I think you would need taunting hop for this to be good, or like taunting hop or unfaithful steed. So I don't know. This is either C tier or D tier. I think. Oh, golden aging is another card that kind of counters queens. It's so you can outmaneuver queens if you really try. You can bait them to a specific square and then get around them, but the amount of effort it takes to do that is hard to muster when you're trying not to get destroyed by pawns and rooks. Hmm. I am tentatively putting this in D tier. I think okay, one queen being indestructible is I don't know. I think it's so bad that I am gonna put it in D tier. Okay, anyway. Okay, karma. Yeah, this is also one of those cards that can just end your run. So losing one firepower is really bad, but somehow losing 30 degrees worth of accuracy is even worse. Because, yeah, very likely the extra 30-degree fire arc will cause one of your pellets to just completely miss, which is effectively -1 firepower. Um, so I think, hmm. So okay, so if you have enough damage, you can just go on black squares. I think black squares are the ones that reduce your firepower. Anyway, whatever. You go to the square that reduces your firepower, and you can still one-shot stuff if you have enough firepower. But like, if you don't have enough firepower to one-shot stuff, this card is going to make you incredibly sad. I'm going to also put this in D tier. I think Karma is not as bad as Iron Maiden. Oh, one thing I didn't mention is that Iron Maiden with King's Mistress is like kind of neat. Or I guess if you manage to find Presbyopia, that's another counter to Iron Maiden because you can just walk right up to them. And what are they going to do? They're going to do nothing. Okay, but let's get on topic. So we're talking about King's Mistress. Yeah, add an extra queen, but queens only can move up to 3 squares. Well, I think this is really good. Yeah, I think just like queens being on the other side of the board or just generally being able to approach you very quickly is a huge problem. I'm going to put this in S tier because I think this card is like actively beneficial. Or if not, it's at least like the benefits, like there are enough benefits. Okay, where exactly do I want to put this in S tier? I don't want to think about it. I'm just going to slap it at the end. Okay, kite shield. That adds a pawn, right? And then it also gives knights a kite shield. Uh, hmm. This is one of those cards that's probably more annoying than it is deadly. Like I kind of want to put it in C tier because not being able to just shoot down a knight is a big problem. Is it more dangerous than genderqueer or full plate armor? I think it is. I think I'm going to put it in C tier. Mm, I don't know. It's hard to say because maybe it deserves to be in B, but okay, so it takes like one extra shot. Okay, so you have to spend one extra shot like breaking the knight's shield, but you can usually do that from a distance. Okay, I'm going to put this in B tier actually. I think kite shield is more of a nuisance. Well, okay, it is. I think it's more of a nuisance than it is a threat. Like it is a threat, but not as much as you might think. Um, yeah, I don't know. It's like there are a lot of squares you can go to move where a knight can't attack you. So if you just move to one of those squares and then you shoot and you try to hit multiple, maybe you like hit 2 knights with your fire arc, it kind of forces you to waste one shot to maybe to break 2 shields, or maybe you do some chip damage to a bishop as well. So I think it's kind of okay. Okay, knightmare. Um, yeah, knights get -1 health, but they are immune when they're not attacking. I think, hmm, I think this also goes in B tier. I think a lot of people would disagree with me, but this is not that deadly of a card. It's a threat, but at the same time, a nightmared knight, you can shoot through it to hit pieces on the other side, and they can't fight back. Like if there's a queen, and then there's a knight, and then there's you shoot through the knight and you hit the queen, and there's no like discovered check possibilities associated with that. And yeah, knights are relatively fast. So, I mean, they move once every 3 turns. So yeah, the extra like you don't have to you don't have to wait that long to be able to shoot a knight. Yeah, so this definitely I would say this goes in B tier. Now where exactly should I put it? Um, I don't know. I'm kind of comparing it to kite shield, and I think kite shield is a little easier to deal with, probably, unless you have some sort of counter to the mist effect. I don't know. Okay, so last guardian, yeah. So this will, I think all it does is promote one pawn. Yeah, if you kill the second to last pawn, then the last pawn promotes automatically. Which, if you remember that you have the card, you can sort of plan around it. Like once there are two pawns left, you can you can shoot one of them if you think you can deal with the other pawn promoting, or you can just go after whatever rooks are left because you took out all the bishops and knights and queens already. Or if you haven't, then you would want to focus down those. Like you can definitely plan around this card if you actually pay attention to the fact that you have it. So, and it doesn't add anything to the board, so I'm going to put it in S tier. Okay, lookout tower. You get a rook on turn 20, and yeah, every kill you get makes that turn come sooner. I mean, in a vacuum, it's really good. The main point of this card is to just combo with other cards that give reinforcements. Like if you have conscription or military academy, then you don't want lookout tower. Um, but yeah, without those cards, I think you're just fine. Like, okay, how many pieces? Like, what turn do you think you would get a rook on average? Maybe you would take out 8 pieces in 12 turns. So a rook shows up on turn 12, which seems like kind of an optimistic prediction that it would come that quickly. Um, but yeah, if it shows up on turn 12, it still has to move into position. Hopefully, you sort of balanced out the kills that you need to get, so you don't just get ladder checkmated by 2 rooks, since you've taken out all the pawns, knights, and bishops. I think I'm gonna put this in A tier. Okay, military academy. I think that's a very very reasonable card to take. Um, yeah, one knight every 10 turns. Knights aren't very dangerous most of the time. So, what does that mean? I mean, how dangerous is not very dangerous? Well, okay, so the first knight will show up on turn 10, and then probably will get into the action by turn 15-ish, because maybe it needs to make 2 moves before it's a threat. And then, another knight shows up later. I think this I think this also goes in S tier. I don't know. My tier list looks weird. Okay, what about militia? Um, well, militia is kind of like a damage check. Like if you don't have enough damage to eliminate the wave of pawns, then you're just gonna lose because it's hard to get past them when you can't just like park on a square behind them diagonally. I think this is one of the more dangerous cards you can take. So is it B tier or C tier? Like you can still outmaneuver pawns even if they can move in any direction because they still can only attack diagonally. So I guess this goes in B tier. Okay. What about peace? You take away a knight and add 2 bishops. I think so. I would say this is more dangerous than crusades, and Yeah, but how much more dangerous? Would I put this in A tier? I think I would put this in A tier. Where exactly does it go in A tier? I don't know. I'll just put it there. Okay, pikemen. Um, yeah, the pikemen, they get an extra health and they get spears. I would say, like, I think this card is pretty dangerous. I think it's more dangerous than militia. Because if you have, yeah, I think the number of squares that it takes away is more than the number of squares that militia takes away early in the round. It's like, okay, so a militia pawn takes away 4 squares from you, right? Because it's attacking 4 squares. And a pikeman pawn only is attacking 2 squares, but the fact that they can reach, the fact they can reach so far up the board, I think makes that more dangerous than militia. I'm gonna put it in C tier. I think it's not as bad as analysis paralysis, or I think it's worse than analysis paralysis, but not as bad as Court of the King. Okay, pillage. You remove a rook and you add 5 pawns, and you give pawns +1 health. Well, that is adding a lot of health to the board. Since pawns normally have 4 health, so you give them 1 more health, and you're adding 5 pawns. The 5 pawns that you add would then be worth 25 health, and you're taking away a rook that has 8 health, so you're adding 17 health to the board, and that's also not counting pawns that existed before you added this card. But let's say you're adding 20 health to the board. Well, then you're probably going to get destroyed by just pawns promoting, unless you have a lot of damage. I feel like if you don't have a lot of damage, then this card is going to just ruin your day. And if you do have a lot of damage, then it's probably fine. Or it's like you need damage and you need a lot of ammo. You need a lot of damage and ammo. I'm trying to put this at the top of C tier. Although I don't think it deserves to be in the top of C tier. I think analysis paralysis is not as bad. Yeah, removing a rook is pretty good, but yeah, that's a lot of health that you're adding to the board. That's going to promote and turn into queens and rooks and checkmate you. Okay, what about remparts? Remove 2 pawns and add a rook. Well, you're only adding a little bit of health to the board with this. Actually, you're not adding any health because a rook has 8 health and a pawn has 4. So it's actually even in terms of health. But if you take away a lot of pawns, I think you start with 6 pawns. If you go below, like, I think taking away 2 pawns and going down to 4 is perfectly fine. If you go below 4 pawns, then you start not having any cover against bishops and queens and rooks. Like, I think losing 2 pawns has the potential to be very dangerous. Um, but you're still not adding any health to the board, and that's only an issue if you take away. I think if you take away only 2 pawns, it's fine. If you take away more than 2 pawns, then yeah, then it gets dicey. Because as long as there are 4 pawns on the board, they at least slow down the queen a little bit. I'm going to put this in, I think, bottom of A. Yeah. Okay, revolution. So pillage I considered to be super dangerous because, I mean, unless you have a lot of firepower, because you're adding a lot of health to the board. Well, yeah, pillage, no, revolution adds 6 pawns, which is 24 health, but it takes away a bishop, which is 5 health. So you're adding 19 health to the board. So I think, hmm, the thing is, I think this is not as bad as, yeah, this is not as bad as pillage, I think. I think it still goes in C tier. Oh, I just remembered something. Guillotine needs revolution in order to go off. but with revolution, you want to go after the king. So actually, yeah, because you have to take revolution in order to take guillotine, this card definitely moves down a tier. Like I think A tier at the best. Yeah, because the hope is you eliminate you eliminate the king before all the pawns promote. You just like go up one side of the board, and because there aren't many pieces on the board because you took away a bishop, there's not much stopping you from just going after the king. Okay. All right, ruins. Add a rook, add 2 pawns, and rooks have 2 less health. I think I'm not going to put this in S tier. I think this goes in A tier. Um, but where exactly? Maybe like low A? It adds a lot of pieces to the board, but you can probably 2-shot. It makes it easier to 2-shot rooks and maybe even 1-shot them. Okay, saboteur. You get a bishop. You add a bishop, and I think you remove a pawn, and you get double fire arc for 1 of the pellets that comes out of every shell. So that's kind of like -1 firepower if you're in a situation where you desperately need to shoot something that's diagonally adjacent or 2 spaces away, or it's a knight and it's attacking you. Like in those situations, it's just like -1 firepower. If you're shooting something that's orthogonally adjacent, then it that doesn't make a difference because even your doubled fire arc projectile is going to hit the thing right next to you. So I don't know. How much does it matter then? Well, you're losing a point of damage in a lot of situations. Hmm. And you're adding a bishop. The thing about bishops is that if they're attacking you, they're diagonally adjacent, which means it's very hard to. Yeah, saboteur makes it harder for you to attack the bishop that got diagonally adjacent. Um, but you can still just move to the other color square from bishop, and it will just move right next to you. I think this just goes in B tier. I was like, oh, C in the middle. Okay. Okay, saddle. So knights lose 1 speed, but they carry other pieces when moving. I think it's anything that's not a knight or a rook. Yeah, knights carrying pawns every time they move. Like if a knight carries 2 pawns toward you, and maybe also a bishop and a rook, or I don't know, there's a lot of potential for saddle to cause serious problems. Um, so yeah, I think I'm gonna put it in C tier. It's like one of those cards. It's one of those cards that just makes your life so much harder. You'll notice the effect. If you take this card, you will notice the effect immediately. You'll be like, wow, this just made my run a lot harder. We'll put it, yeah, we'll put it all the way at the bottom of C. Okay, sanctity. Add 1 bishop. You can't, and then you can't get bishop souls. Okay. Well, not being able to get bishop souls is like kind of annoying because bishop souls are kind of the best soul. Well, I don't know. It's arguable whether it's bishop or rook. Obviously not counting queen souls. I think, hmm, I would say this is an A tier card. Is it high A or is it low A? I think it's, well, losing the ability to get bishop souls is not a big deal if you have 1 soul card and you're like, okay, I'm just going to use it 1 soul card slot. You're like, okay, I'm going to use it for like queens and rooks. Oh, that's pretty cool. So I think I'm going to put it in mid A. Low A, I guess. Okay, scouting. You add 3 pawns, you take away a knight, and you give pawns more speed. Well, yeah, giving anything more speed is very dangerous. Um, especially since you're also adding some pawns in the process. You're adding pawns and you're giving those pawns extra speed, and all the other pawns that already existed get 1 speed. Um, and since it takes about 6 moves for a pawn to promote, it's actually when you add that many pieces to the board, it's like some of the pawns are likely to go to the third row, but you can shoot those pawns first, and then you're sort of thinking about the timer of the pawns that started on the second row or the seventh row. So yeah, that costs you 6 turns of pawn movement, which I would say, I guess when you think about it, it's kind of comparable to analysis paralysis, because analysis paralysis costs you 6 turns, but I mean, I think this is comparable to analysis paralysis. Probably not quite as bad. You are removing a knight. Yeah, I don't know. Okay, secret heir goes in S tier because you're just adding a pawn. You probably were going to clear out most of the pawns anyway. Shortage removes a pawn, removes 3 ammo, and removes a grenade. Well, you probably didn't have grenades anyway because getting a grenade build is pretty rare. So it's just how much does losing 3 ammo matter? And I think it matters quite a bit. I think if you have the Solomon or the Victoria, I think any gun is going to be like kind of miserable when you lose 3 ammo, even if you lose 1 pawn in the process. Um, Now does it go in C tier? I think it depends on your build. If you're doing okay on ammo, then it's B tier, and if you're not doing great on ammo, then it's C tier. Okay, succubus, get a soul card slot and get a queen. Well, getting an extra queen is super dangerous. I think if you have cards that nerf the queen, like if you took King's Mistress, or if you took Golden Aging, or whatever else there might be that I can't think of at the moment, then it's fine. Or if you have synergy with your soul slots, like if you have Sacred Crown, or I guess also Gradual Absolution is a thing. I think if you have any synergies like that, then it's fine. But without that, I think this is C tier. Whoops. Uh, okay, I didn't lose my progress. Thank goodness. Okay, yeah. So Succubus goes in C tier because if you can one-shot a queen, I think it's in B tier. But because it's hard to get to the point where you can one-shot a queen, I would say it's C tier. Okay, the bridge. So if you have the moat, you can get the bridge, which adds a knight on turn 10, and it opens a path in the moat. Um, yeah, this is a very annoying card for sure. You can still kind of make the card work by, you just hide behind the left or the right side of the moat. But then the queen like approaches through the middle, or a rook approaches through the middle eventually. And you would have to be on the leftmost 2 column, or left or rightmost 2 columns, because if you're on the C or F columns, bishops and queens can attack you diagonally. Although I think this is just B tier. It's not super dangerous. It's it's like kind of annoying is what it is. I think it's not as bad as full plate armor. Okay, what about Jester? I feel like you're going to be eliminating a lot of pawns anyway. So Jester, like, okay, fine. The Jester just like runs up to you and makes you shoot him. But like you were going to shoot him anyway. So I actually don't think this is much of an issue. I'm going to put this in S tier. Okay, Red Book. Red Book can be dangerous, It adds a bishop, I believe, in addition to making bishops able to move like queens. If you can one-shot bishops, this isn't too bad, but it's also annoying if you go to the wrong color square and there's a bishop far away. Normally, what the bishop will do is just move right up to you and you can shoot it super easily. But with red book, the bishop will just like move one space over to get on the correct diagonal, and then it's going to be far away, and that is really annoying. Um, yeah, so red book is very annoying in that case. It's very difficult to move to spaces where bishops aren't going to be able to attack you unless they're blocked off by a lot of pieces. I don't know. Let's put this in C tier. I think this might be a little hard on the card. No, I'm putting it in B tier. Like you can win runs. This doesn't just like end your run the way that some of the way that the C tier cards can end your run. Okay, what about theocracy? I think theocracy. Well, okay, so theocracy is probably less dangerous. I don't know. It's either less dangerous or more dangerous than red book. Great, that's very helpful. Anyway, you can't realistically one-shot bishops anymore. So it's like, how are you going to be able to outmaneuver them? You're adding a bishop as well, so you're gonna have 3 bishops with this, or we're gonna have 2 bishops? Plus whatever bishops you add during the run. I think this is a big deal whether you start the game with 2 bishops or 3 bishops. I think you start the game with, or okay, you start with either 1 or 2, and then the theocracy would add 1. I think no, you definitely start with 2 bishops. Yeah, so this brings you up to 3 bishops, and yeah, they can get in your way very easily, and it can be difficult to shoot the one that's the odd one out in terms of what color square they're on. Like if there are 2 light squared bishops and 1 dark squared bishop, you want to get rid of the dark squared bishop so that you're entirely safe on a certain color square. But that's kind of hard to do if you have to move out of the way. Most likely the other bishops are going to be blocking your shots. I think this goes on the bottom of B tier. Okay, throne room. King +2 health, who cares? Queen +1 health. It doesn't really matter unless it prevents you from hitting a breakpoint in terms of queen health. I'm going to say this is like A tier because it's like kind of inconsequential, except it does make it harder to one-shot the queen. Well, it makes it harder to one-shot the queen, but it also makes it harder to chip down the queen to low enough damage where you can one-shot her. Yeah, we'll put this in like low. We'll put this in medium A. Yeah, we'll put it between castle and sanctity. Okay, trowel. Rooks get +4 health. Flip card if you've shot every single pawn on the board. Well, a lot of like sometimes rooks will attack you before you're able to get rid of all the pawns. So in that case, like usually I would say this is probably C tier. It's just like it's very dangerous. You can get checkmated by rooks pretty easily, especially if a pawn promotes to a rook. You're just like really sad with trowel. Um, so yeah, I'm gonna put this in C. Yeah, bottom of C. There we go. Okay, undead armies. I used to think this card wasn't so bad because it gives pawns less health, but like over time I've played this with this card, and a lot of the time you're gonna shoot pieces down near the promotion square. So these pawns are an immediate threat of promoting. They're not like promoting immediately unless they're on your second rank, but they're still very threatening in terms of promoting in the near future. And also, um, Okay, so a pawn showing up blocks off two squares. It blocks off the square that it's standing on because you can't move to that square, and it blocks off the square that it's attacking. So it makes it harder to be like, oh, I'm gonna kill this bishop, and then I'm going to use the square the bishop vacated to outmaneuver the queen and rook or whatever. It makes it way harder to get away with that. Um, Now, how difficult is that to deal with? I think it's very difficult to. Well, I don't know. Let's put it in B tier. I think the chance that it just like ruins your run isn't that high compared to like some of the cards down here. Okay, Witch's Curse. You lose one firepower and one fire range and 10-degree fire arc until you kill a queen, but it's so hard to kill a queen when you have this effect active. So I think this just goes in D tier. I don't know what the ordering should be in the D tier. I think no. Witch's Curse is definitely worse than Karma. Um, I think it's also worse than Iron Maiden. I don't know. It's hard to evaluate. I'm not gonna worry too much about the order within a tier. Okay, Zealots. You give bishops and pawns +1 speed, but you flip it if there's no bishop on the board. Um, well, if you have okay, so you have two bishops on the board, which means it's going to be hard to just like surgically eliminate the two of them as quickly as possible. I think I would just not want to take this card. This just seems like a bad idea. I'm going to put it in C tier, at the top of C tier. Um, yeah, this was a really hard tier list to make. Um, yeah, I'm sure a lot of people are going to disagree with some of these cards, and that's great. We get to share opinions on why this card should be higher and that card should be lower. It'll be fun. But yeah, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.